Welcome, everybody, to the first episode of the Purpose Podcast. I'm David Yurzar. We have...
I'm Diggy.
And I'm Dan Burchfield.
Awesome. So, everybody, this is the first episode. Very special guest. He's the man, the myth, the legend. We all know him. We all love him. He introduced himself already, so we got Dan Burchfield here. Let us know, a little bit of background, where you grew up and all that.
Okay, I was born in Torrance, California. I grew up in Torrance, California, and it's kind of like Redondo Beach area and in that area. I lived there till I was about 26, 7, 8 years old. Okay. And I went to school there. I went to college, El Camino College there, junior college, and then I started Dominguez Hills, and I got my degree at Cal State Dominguez Hills. And then, I got married and lived in Torrance for close to 3-4 years. And then I was also was a plumber and my father-in-law had the plumbing business in Agoura. And so we'd drive out from Torrance to Agoura, and I did that for like 6 years. Okay. And we were ready to buy a house, and then we bought a house in Moorpark, and I ended up here in Moorpark. But mainly my childhood was all in Torrance, California.
In Torrance. Yeah. What was your major in?
I majored in theater arts.
Okay. Cool.
I love baseball, and I wanted to get baseball, but I didn't really grow until I got out of high school. But I was always good in theater. So I said, okay, I'm good at theater. I'm going to get my degree in theater arts, and that's what I got my degree in.
Awesome. In terms of like the whole theater arts thing, was your goal to always be a teacher, or did you want to be like some sort of actor or something like that?
Yeah, I wanted to be an actor.
Okay.
That was my first choice.
Right.
At first, I wanted to be a sports announcer, and then it came into, I would like practice and sports announce as I practiced. And then since I was good in theater, I thought I'm going to be an actor.
Right.
And I took acting lessons in Burbank. And,
wow.
Yeah, I did a few things there, and we got paid a couple times. We did like a company did like a whodunit mystery thing, so we got paid for that. They go to different rooms and find out who the murderer was. So I did that too.
That's
and
cool.
I did some stage work, but then I got married, and there goes the acting career.
So outside of like the whole teaching thing, so you said you wanted to be an actor and everything. Was there like a specific like genre you wanted to go into, or anything that you could really find the work in?
No, it was just, I was good at acting, so that's what I did. And then when I got my degree in theater arts, I'm going, okay, now what am I going to do with this? And that's when my father-in-law, who owned his plumbing business, and he says, you're going to learn a trade. My daughter's not going to starve, so you're going to at least have that. So that's when he, I wasn't that great a plumber at the start, so he taught me that occupation. Mm-hmm. So then I did that. So actually the theater, I still did some local theater as a plumber. My wife dances, and we did some musicals together, so we did that.
Right.
But then other than that, it was just kind of like a hobby.
Okay.
I just did it into plumbing.
Cool. And when was it that you became a teacher? When did you make the decision? I think teaching is best.
It was a year after my son passed away.
Okay.
And I knew I had to do something else. It was just something inside of me that said, hey, you got to do something else in life. And it kind of hit me, and I'll tell you the specific time. I can only remember, because I would go to bed at night, and say, all right, God, what do you want me to do? And it still was not, I couldn't, I wasn't getting answers.
Right.
But it was a year after my son passed away. We're at Holy Cross Church, and we did like a celebration for his life. Mm-hmm. And a friend of ours had like a little pie plate with a candle in it, and I took the candle first, and I walked out down the hallway of Holy Cross Church, went outside. It was getting kind of dusk. It was kind of dark, so you can see the light. And anyway, all of Joel's friends, I didn't know this. I just walked out and was kind of looking over, Moorpark at the time. And I turned around, and there was all these kids who just followed me. And it kind of hit me then, and I said, "Wait a minute, I want to influence kids' lives, and I want to become a teacher." Awesome. So that's when I was starting to work part time, and then I went back to school, and that's got me into teaching.
Awesome. So you touched on your son Joel and how he passed. Did you want to kind of like go through that story? And I noticed that you do a lot for your son, like in a positive light, and. So do you want to like just go into the story?
Sure.
Of that?
My son passed away on January 1996, January 31st, 1996. And for that, I don't know, for like 6 months, I was in a hot fog. I mean, I was just going, all right, what am I doing? I was working as a plumber at the time. And it was kind of a miracle, I suppose. Our Little League team at that time, all of Joel's friends, 1996, were that year of the Little League season. I coached his team, even though he was not on the team, and we dedicated the season to my son. And the All-Star team kept winning, and they were patches on their jerseys. They had
awesome.
They had armbands for that, and they kept winning, and they kept winning. And it was kind of a miracle, and I kind of got drawn in. We went to San Bernardino. Here's they're the Southern California champions of Little League, which is really hard to do.
Right.
And so they went there, and all of a sudden it was almost like I was an observer of that, and it was. All right, this is what kind of like drew me out of that. You still grieve over something like
Absolutely.
that, but kind of like changed me and like, okay, you got to do something positive from this.
Right.
And they went all the way to Little League World Series. They didn't win the Little League World Series, but watching that and watching what they did for my son, and later they went back and we went to Joel's grave and they took some of the dirt from the infield and sprinkled it on his grave. And seeing these kids and what they did, I knew that kind of just snapped me into, all right, you got to do something.
Right.
Now, like I said, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was saying, okay, I got to do this and that. And that's when that year passed that I wanted to become a teacher. Mm-hmm. For those who don't know, my son drowned in the Arroyo walking home from school. Wow. And we don't know what happened. We have speculations of what happened, like he fell in. And the Arroyo was a little bit different than it is now. It was raining for like almost a week straight. And it was like a roaring river through there. When that night we were looking for him, the whole town came out of Moorpark, came down. We were out looking for him. It was awesome to see how the town supported my family. Right. And so anyway, he drowned and they found him in Camarillo. And another odd thing there, it was on the radio, missing boy, and some individual, we don't even know who it was, went down there and found him, called the police, and the police came and they found the body, and it was almost like, all right, this is where he is, and maybe it was God pointing him out. I don't know, but it was one thing that was happening too.
Yeah, and how old was he when he did?
He was 11.
He was 11.
Yeah.
Okay, so. How was the process in terms of like dealing with the grief of everything? Like I know people go through that a lot, and I feel like it's a lot of people say that it's worse for the parent to end up having to deal with their children passing as opposed to the other way around. How was like the grieving process for you in terms of
for me individually? It's something what I've learned, it's something you as an individual have to go through. Certain people grieve differently. My wife grieved differently than I did, and she kind of shut down for a while. I shut down for a while, but it was almost like I had to do something to make something of Joel's legacy, and that would turn to me. And that turned into the teaching. That turned into certain things that, the foundation that we'll talk about later that Joel turned into me writing the book. To me, it was like a journey that you're on. You're like walking down this road and you're thinking about things. You're depressed, but then all of a sudden you see certain things that kind of bring you out of it. Then it brings you back. It's something you never get over, but there's things that can brighten it up, and then it's kind of like a grieving hole in your heart, and then all of a sudden it kind of like closes a little bit and opens a little bit, and then eventually it heals a little bit, but never fully heals. Right. I guess that'd be the best way for me personally to describe it.
Right. What kind of advice would you give to somebody that is grieving for a lost one, or whether it be a family member or friend?
I would always I would always keep them, since they're gone, but always keep them alive in spirit. Keep them alive in your heart. And it's certain things, just by a lot of people grieve just close up and do it, but kind of like celebrate their life with you all the time. And sure, a lot of people are reading a lot of books that kind of bring you from the grief process, but I like to read success stories that kind of help me. Yeah. And that helped me. And mainly just kind of keep them in your heart and keep them around with you. Say their name, bring their name out. And like I said, it's something that you have to go through, and eventually it gets a little better, but it'll always be with you. But that to me is to take baby steps here and there, always keep them in your life.
Right, absolutely. So kind of like my my biggest question in a sense, because people deal with like mental health issues all the time, and it comes into something that they battle with on a day-to-day basis. You know, there's people like myself deal with some sort of depression and anxiety, and at times I find it difficult to do like regular things such as like just even eat, or I lose sleep and stuff like that. How did like the passing of Joel affect your day-to-day life in terms of just like, just regular everyday things?
I will tell you, believe it or not, it kind of opened up my world. It opened up my world because it was like life's fragile. And I see all of a sudden here, you look at it, all right, my son will grow up and do whatever he's going to do in life, and now that's gone. And it kind of opened me up. I looked at and saw people's feelings more. And because of that, I looked at the world in a different light. Because I'm going, I could be gone tomorrow. And I said I should celebrate that more or help other people. That was another thing that came into my life because of that. It kind of really opened up my soul and my heart a lot because of losing him. And it kind of like upset okay, we all have this planned life, right? To grow up, get married, have kids, have an occupation you love, be a grandfather, and then you're done. But that section of my life was cut out. And it kind of opened up other things in my life, seeing things. You asked like helping through the grief. Friends of mine like to hike. And I got through nature and doing a lot of hikes and walks and thinking about what was going on, thinking about feelings. That helped me out a lot also.
Right.
So maybe, if it's for people, like yourself that deal with that, maybe just kind of like walk certain areas, certain hiking areas by yourself and just kind of like, because nature helps out a lot too, especially when you're like opening up the world.
Yeah.
I think that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I actually recently talked to one of my best friends, and he had a memorial to go to. His father passed a few years ago, and they went to a memorial for his dad's friend who just passed. And one of the biggest focuses that somebody spoke about when they were at the memorial was just being appreciative of the time that we have and don't take it for granted.
Definitely.
Do you think that's like a big thing?
Definitely. It's like, that is definitely a big thing. What he did, and I'll even take it further because it's been 26 years since my son passed away, and you always wonder what he would looked like, what he would have been doing, who he would have fell in love with, those always come back to haunt me.
Right.
But he would always be in my mind 11 years old, and I always look at him as Joel as the little league kid and the 11-year-old.
Right.
But another thing you said with grieving, especially with me. We had the Joel Foundation, and we give out scholarships, and I think that's his legacy lives through that.
Absolutely.
And there's other things that would help you, like we'll get into the bridge a little bit later, but for that, certain things just to kind of like, okay, yeah, he didn't have his life to grow, but you know what? This is his legacy, right. and he's inspiring other people, and that'll inspire other people, and it just gets grows and grows.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So you said his legacy and everything, and you want that to live on. I want to talk more specifically about the day-to-day grief that you went through, because I feel like it's definitely something that people should talk about, because it's something that is difficult to talk about, So is like when it first happened, was there, what were the emotions that kind of ran through?
Well, to be honest with you, we're looking for Joel. You pray, you hope he's all right. You hope he's all right. And you pray to God, and then that falls on deaf ears. And then you kind of, I had a period in my life where, it's going, well, questioning God. Why would this happen? Why I'm a good person. Why he was a good person. Why would this happen? And you kind of just go through a time period where you're just going, all right, God, what's going on? What are you going to do with me? And I think through my journey that I've taken, and through that, and through inspiring kids and teaching, and then through the Little League process, it kind of, God came a bigger focus in my life. And now I talk to him before I do this and that, and what I want to do in my life, and that's become a bigger part. And I think that helps people too through the grieving process. Other things like we talked about is just kind of like we touched on it a little bit, just talking personally, is like bringing it out in the open, talking to people. sometimes it's hard. And because a lot of people, I think they don't want to mention it to you because, well, I don't want, upset you because, we talk about Joel. But to me, talking about him, keeps him alive more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's like, we're talking about, oh yeah, well, Joel did this and that. And I love, stories like that. Recently we had a 25-year reunion of the Little League All-Stars. And I put it together because I wanted to see what those guys are doing because Joel would have been their age, and and we went to the Country Days parade, and afterwards we went to a park, and all the families were there, and awesome. It just soothed my soul to see all these kids, they weren't kids, they're like 37 years old now. Right. But with their families and having kids, and now they're going to be coaching t-ball, and they're out there running around. Yeah. And you look back on that, and it was a little sadness because that could have been Joel. Right. But then again, through them, hey, Joel, you knew Joel, and he was your friend, and watching them, that kind of put my heart at ease. That I think that helped the grief process too. Just seeing keeping them in your life and keeping the memories alive in your heart.
Right. Go ahead. Did you have anything to say?
No.
So I know you talked about this, but where do you really think the motivation came from to turn this whole situation into a positive light? Like where did you really dig deep and think that this is my motivation, this is why I push it out and really just turn it into something that could touch and help other people?
It was kind of a gradual process. It wasn't just like all of a sudden, all right, this is what we're going to do. Right. And I told you about the instance to become a teacher. So I go back and it was a rough road. I mean, it was like, the first couple of times, to teach history, because that was my minor. And I majored in theater arts, but I minored in history because I always loved history. And I had a really good teacher in college that kind of pushed me towards that. And it was like, okay, you got to take a test because since you didn't major to teach history, you got to take this test. Well, the first time it was like you had to write essays and do this and that, and I missed it. I missed it like 5 points. I didn't pass the test. Mm-hmm. So I went back and I was studying it, writing essay writing because I've been out of school for 20 years. And then I did it again and I missed it by, another 8 points. So it was like, all right, maybe I'm conjuring all this in my mind. Maybe this isn't meant to be. Mm-hmm. And so the last time I took the test, and I wrote about this in my book, that the test was at El Camino Real High School. So I got up early, drove to Joel's grave and had a long talk with my son, and then took the test, came back. And then 3 weeks later, you usually get the envelopes. And, all right, did you pass or you did not pass? Mm-hmm. This one, for some reason, took 4 weeks, and that was kind of had me on edge. Right. But when I got the envelope, I said, okay, this is it. If I can't pass it now, maybe just it's conjuring in my mind. Mm-hmm. I go to the bridge, and I stood there and opened up and said I had passed. So then again, it just kind of fueled me. Right. And then I went to school. In my first year teaching, I was getting chewed up a little bit. It wasn't like I was just like, oh, great teacher. It took a while. Yeah. And then I always had doubts in my mind. All right, should I teach? Mm-hmm. Because some of these kids were just running all over me. Right. And so I had to. It was a gradual process, but through that, I think through all the hardships, it kind of was all right. Hey, you got to keep doing it. And then we had the scholarships coming out. Then mm-hmm. we did that. And then the scholarships start to grow. Mm-hmm. And then it was kind of like just a long journey. You go along down this road, and I was kind of give that, the metaphor like walking down the road in life. And it just kind of hit me, said, okay, you have to do this. You have to do this. And that was my inspiration. I kind of like a little by little. And then the kids started inspiring me. Mm-hmm. And because then I saw a few kids going, hey, Burchfield, I loved your class. I want to be a teacher. And that's probably the biggest compliment you can have as a teacher. And I've had throughout the years, probably like 10 to 12 kids come up to me and say, I want to be a teacher because you inspired me. Mm-hmm. And that kept going. So it kept feeding on itself. So it was just kind of like going through the whole process, I suppose. And it just got, this is what you got to do. Yeah. Little by little, it kind of like focused me on what I had to do and turn into a positive.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think one of the biggest turning points was having that conversation with Joel at his grave?
Yeah. Definitely going to take the test and become a teacher.
And then, obviously that sprang everything forward and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's definitely really big. You talked about the bridge and you talked about your book and the foundation. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and how it started and what it really is?
Sure. I'll start with the foundation. When Joel passed away, I talked about how the people of Moorpark came together to lift up my family. Well, I didn't know this, but there was people donating money into a fund, and there was over $8,000. And I'm going, oh, okay. And we didn't know that, and we couldn't afford to fly out there. I took off work. My wife took off work to fly out to Williamsport, so we used some of that money to fly out there. And then before we did that, we got a new scoreboard for the Little League, because we always had those hang on the numbers scoreboard at Moorpark. So then we got one that lit up.
Right.
So that came through the Joel Fund. And so then somebody came to us later and said, hey, why don't you just do a scholarship fund? Oh, okay. So we did that. And that started in, I think it was 1999, we started that. And so we've been doing that. And it got down to like, I don't know, we had like $250 left. And we give out $250 to, different people, to seniors, graduating seniors. So that's when I started my walks. Well, I used to like to walk.
Right.
So then one summer, I walked from kind of Ventura to San Pedro, just along the beach. So one of my students actually walked with me, and they asked, hey, why don't you do this for a fundraiser? So, okay. So like I said, I only had like $250 left in that fund. And so I did, and a buddy of mine who is a writer for the LA Times said, hey, do you mind if we do an article? I said, no, that'd be great.
Awesome.
So for I take it, I started from Carpinteria this time, and I went from Carpinteria to Ventura to Newbury Park to Malibu, and all the way down to San Pedro. Well, he was in the lake from Santa Monica to Redondo Beach, and he walked like 7 miles, and he wrote this article in the LA Times. Well, and he wrote in there, do you mind, I'll put your address, people who can donate to the Joel Fund. Well, they did, and I got from that one summer probably $18,000.
Wow.
People just donating from checks.
Yeah.
And I'm going, wow, okay, so now I'm going to do the walk. So every summer we doing this walk, we raise money for it. But that one summer we just raised a lot. And now we're giving out 5 scholarships, $1,000 a piece, and it's just starting to grow.
Yeah.
Recently, we had a friend of mine who knew about the scholarships. She says, well, a family that we knew from Little League, Jeff and Nancy Haas, that they had recently said, hey, we want to donate. And I said, oh, okay, that's fine. She goes, well, we had an inheritance. We want to donate $25,000. Whoa. So now I've got more and more. This thing just seems to be growing.
Right.
And now this year I had another plan of I sponsored 2 Little League kids for equipment to play Little League, 2 softball girls to Moorpark softball for their year. And then I want to also do football, the Packers too. So it's starting to expand and starting to grow over the years. For 25 years, it started like, we're just going to have to, forget this, and then all of a sudden it's just grown. So that's kind of how the scholarships have. And recently, one of my former students got sick, and he, for his Eagle Scout project, had a bench, and it's over there on the corner of Tierra Hada and Mountain Trail in the Vaughn's parking lot.
Okay, yeah.
And it's all rusted. I was doing one of my walks, and I saw it was rusted, and I knew he had been sick because he's my neighbor. So we put the Joel Fund, bought a new bench, and we put that out there too. So it's kind of like I have a vision too that I want to turn into Joel Burchfield Scholarship into like Joel's Angels, helping people around the city. So that's kind of growing that way too. So it's kind of like you said, it's just kind of like all coming at a little bit here, a little bit there. You talk about the bridge. A year after Joel passed away, we fought to have that bridge built. And so that way, any kids walking from school won't do the same thing that happened.
What exactly do you mean fought to?
Well,
to get the
at
bridge?
first, we some of the students in Joel's class had a petition to build a bridge because there was no bridge there. Kids just walked across it and used. First one was like shopping carts from it used to be Albertsons, and they'd walk across there.
Right.
And then kids would just kind of put baggies over their feet and walk across it because some most of the time of the year it was just kind of really low.
Right.
But we wanted to fight to have this bridge built. Well, the city said, okay, we're going to do it. After that year that Joel passed away, it was like he passed away in 1st of February. Now it's October, November, and still nothing's been done. So myself and a lot of my neighbors went down to every city council meeting and said, okay, what's the bridge going? How are we going to do on the bridge? And well, Mr. Burchfield, these things take time. The land was, what we found out was owned SoCal Edison owned part of the land.
Right.
The city had part in the land, and the flood control had part of it, and none of them can agree on a price. So we kept going down there, fighting for it. Oh, Mr. Burchfield, these things take time. So now we're getting into like past December. The rains came again. We had volunteers just standing out there to make sure kids wouldn't go across, after when school got out in middle school. So finally we got an idea that why don't we send letters to SoCal Edison and to do this. So we had a form letter and we just passed them out to everybody in Moorpark as we knew. And we mailed it, and I didn't know who to mail the letter to, who was the one, not the president, but somebody who gets things done at SoCal Edison.
Right. And
I called down there and a secretary to, Mr. Burchfield, I saw the Little League World Series and we knew about Joel. He goes, this is the guy you sent it to, but don't say I said anything. So we just bombarded, I think it was one of the vice presidents of SoCal Edison. And lo and behold, 2 weeks later, he said, we'll give you the land. And so the land was the one that took a while. So once they did that, it was built.
Yeah.
And so they wanted to name it the Joel Burchfield Bridge. A lot of the students did, but I was just so happy to get the bridge built. We didn't even know about it. We said, all right, just do the bridge.
Right.
So 25 years goes by fast. And I was talking to somebody, and one of the council members on the Moorpark Council, Daniel Groff, who helped push this through. He goes, how come it's not the Joel Burchfield Bridge? I said, well, we just never really fought for it afterwards.
Right.
Even though if you look on Google, it'll say, it'll say Joel's Bridge on there before it happened.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's
so
awesome.
then they said we should do that. So went through, and now if you go by the bridge, we had it was a ceremony in February of the dedication is Joel Burchfield Bridge, and now on either side's got lettering Joel Burchfield Bridge on there. So it's just awesome. Yeah. And when they first broke ground for the bridge, I wrote a poem, or I read a poem that I did in college from one of my drama classes, because you had to do like a dramatic reading of a poem. And it's funny that the poem was The Bridge Builder, about this old man who passes a bridge or passes the water, and he decides, I'm going to build a bridge for people who come this way. And some old man, another guy asked, why are you building this bridge? Well, for the people who come, so they won't, have to traverse the waters. So then I kind of took that poem and I made it Joel's story. Right. And a lot of people reached out to me later and said, why don't you put that on the bridge? So I talked to the city council, and now what we're going to do is I kind of cut down the poem a little bit, and that's going to be on the bridge too. So now 10, 20 years from now, when, who knows where I'm going to be or whoever's ever going to be, they can look at this plaque and kind of read, this is why the bridge came about, because it was Joel's story. And
you're in the process of getting that done now?
Yeah.
So how does that work? Like what?
The Joel Fund's going to pay for for that, and we're going to put it on a plaque. And so that plaque is going to be on one of the side of the bridge. When we first put the bridge in there, my father-in-law was in the Masons, and they put a plaque on there, and it said for all the children who walk this way. And that was been on there since 1997. So this is going to be on the other side, and mainly it just tells the story of a boy who crossed the river and helped the people, and as an angel in heaven prayed for this bridge. And that's what the poem's going to be about, and that's going to be on there.
Gotcha.
Well, I think it's pretty cool about the bridge too. Is like for 3rd of July, a lot of people use that as an entrance too. So like seeing Joel's name on there is going to be something really cool for everyone to come, because it wasn't. You guys just put it up recently, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's going to be really cool. Like I haven't personally seen it yet, but I know I'm going to go and take videos of it. That way we could just show like people watching the podcast. Because I think I wish I would have known like that when you guys were revealing it, because I would have went 100%. Because when I saw it on your Twitter, and I was like, I wish I was there. Like that would have been so cool.
Yeah, the neat thing about that too was, I put it out on Facebook and on Twitter, and there was over 250 people there.
No way.
And former students come up to me, and they did an article in the Ventura Star about the bridge.
Yeah, I saw that.
And so it was funny because it was like 3:30, and I was talking to this reporter. My wife came, and I didn't know this either, but my wife, she deals with her grief a little bit differently than I did.
Right.
And she never walked over the bridge. She didn't want to.
Wow.
And so the reporter from the Ventura County Star asked her, hey, we want to interview you too. So I asked her, I said, do you want to do this? You don't have to. She goes, no, I want to do this. So that was the first time over 25 years she walked over the bridge.
Wow.
And it was just like, she told me this. I'm like, I never knew that.
Right.
And so anyway, but when 3:30, so I'm talking. He goes, oh, you became a teacher? Yes. And two of my students walk over because the school got out, right? hey, Burchfield. And he goes, oh, and then hey, Burchfield. So it was like the person going, oh, is that what your students? Yep, that's my students too. So that really warmed my heart. That day, watching that bridge watching the unveil the whole naming on it, it's really cool the way they did it too. It was very emotional, but yet beautiful.
Yeah.
If you can really.
And what I noticed is how much of an impact you've had on all of your students, like just on social media alone, like on Twitter, like just that post that you posted, it had like almost like 100 likes or something. Like you have a lot of big impact on past students, like especially for me. I had you for history, I think my junior year, and ever since then, like I've just kind of took everything that you taught me as a life lesson, especially once I finished school when you helped me out, and I worked with you on the walk video. Like it's just everything you've taught me personally, I've taken it and try to take it a step further and help other people. And I feel like I'm not alone when I say that. I feel like you've helped a lot of students learn about themselves and also like just learning to help others whenever they can. I think you've done a lot that's been very helpful.
Thank you. I guess, you asked what started. I mean, it's like once I got involved in the teaching and I said, I want to make a difference in all the kids' lives. And then watching the kids and what they did for me, here I never got to really see my son Joel grow up. And now I'm teaching these kids and being involved in their lives. And that helped me a lot. It really helped me. And that just drove me to say, okay, I'm going to be honest and help all the other kids. And that has helped me too. So thank you so much, because it's been my life goal. That was my mission.
Yeah,
to do that.
This is our first episode, and we've been planning this for probably since February.
Yeah,
beginning of February, and we were like, okay, like we want to have some guests and all this stuff, but we're like, who should be number one? And I was like, it's got to be Burchfield.
It was, and the thing is, like, it was like the way it happened and how we came up with. Well, it was him that came up with getting you on here first. Was you saw the tweet, right?
Yeah, I saw
the bridge,
the tweet, and I was like, he's helped so many people. Like, this is something that people would love to listen to, whether they're just going to work or just tune in for a few minutes. Like, people would tune in and I think would want to hear from you and more about your story because of how much you've helped others and how much people love you. So
thank you. That means a lot to me.
That
means a lot to
absolutely.
Me that.
I was never fortunate enough to have you as a teacher, but like Diggy said, like you've had definitely a positive impact on a lot of people. And I think being a teacher is one of the most important jobs that realistically anybody could have. I think definitely like at every stage of a person's life too. You know what I mean? Like there's teachers obviously when you're younger, and that sets people up for a lot to begin with. As they're little kids, middle school, they're more influential at that age. And then there's people like you know, here in a high school. And I feel like high school is where a lot of people, you know, start to figure out a lot about themselves. You know, they deal with, you know, kids start dating nowadays and like at this age, and they go through their heartbreaks, you know, whatever that may be. And people deal with a lot of like emotional distress. They deal with a lot of, you know, mental health issues and stuff like that. So I think having teachers that are influential, just like you and other teachers that I personally have had in the past I feel like it just goes unnoticed a lot of the times, is that like people don't really give the credit that these teachers need. And that they deserve, because like I said, there's been teachers that have a very big impact on me, and like even football coaches. Like one of my biggest inspirations was Coach Linz, you know, and just his drive to continue to get better each and every day, whether that be through football. You know, like Diggy said, you take those lessons and you push them a step further. You know, you want to carry that into your personal life, and again, that's something that I've carried with me every day, is just push forward. Always, you know, look for something that makes you happy and continue to, you know, keep chugging along. Like your whole situation with Joel and everything, how you just feed off of the positive feedback that you get from people. And just like one of my biggest things is at times, like I love to make people happy. That's my purpose. That's which being the name of this podcast. It's my purpose. I want to make people happy, you know? So I think going through that every day, finding a reason to make people smile and keep pushing forward is, you know, I think it's more important than anything. And sometimes I feel like I mean, this is just like a personal kind of insecurity, I guess I would say, is like I do things and I say things to try to make people happy. I'm doing this podcast to try to make people happy. And at times I feel like it's selfish in a way, you know. Again, I just think it's some sort of insecurity that I have. I think it's selfish to try to make people happy because it benefits me. However, I'm starting to realize that it's not selfish whatsoever, you know, like I'm putting other people in, you know, before I am and stuff like that. So I think you being the inspiration that you are, you know, it helps a lot of people out. And I think it's something that everybody needs. I think anybody who listens to this podcast that hasn't heard your story before, it's going to open a lot of eyes and hearts to, you know, being kind to one another, you know, because that's the biggest thing. I had a conversation with a friend of mine recently that it's not difficult to be, you know, nice to somebody. It's not difficult to, you know, encourage somebody to keep pushing forward. For your situation with Joel and everything, you know, you always had to keep pushing forward. It was obviously something that was super difficult for you. So I think just surrounding yourself with the right people and, you know, trying to ignore any negativity and just because at the end of the day, you go to bed and you live with the decisions that you've made. And if you worry so much about the negative things that have happened, you know, that day, it just eats you alive, you know? So I think keeping a positive mental is something that a lot of people should try to do. Obviously it's easier said than done. I know I deal with battles each and every day. I know Diggy does, and I'm sure you do. So I think, again, you're a huge inspiration, and teachers play a bigger role than I feel like some of them think that they know they do, you know?
You're right, because even now, you know, because of the COVID, and it's been tough on teachers, believe me. Last year was rough. I mean, it was like you're talking to a little box, and even there's, I don't know, I sense over the last 5 or 6 years, a lot of, you talk about negativity, there's been just a lot of negativity, and you just I try to push forward, you know, like, hey, just get through this, you know, you just move on, you know, and try to inspire some kids. It's getting tougher and tougher, right? Believe me. And like you touched on it, and I think you talk about purpose. I think it's this, at least in my life, the secret of is the more you give, and the more you're going to get back. Because it seems the more I give, I get all these things back at me. And did I know that going in? No, I just did it because I wanted to do it. And like you start this podcast, you're going to find people, come up to you and say, thank you so much for that. And that's going to inspire you to keep going on and on and on. Yeah,
absolutely. I think like just positive feedback will always push people forward. Yes. And I had a conversation with a friend last night specifically. She's trying to get into social media and like do something with that. But there's always going to be somebody who has something negative to say, and there's always going to be someone that has something positive to say. You know, you can't cater to everybody's interests. You know, it's impossible. If you try to please everybody, you're only going to lose yourself. If you start to do things that one specific person, somebody leaves a comment, you know, oh, I don't like the way you did this, you should do this instead. If you listen and pay attention to every single comment and start doing, you know, what they want you to, again, like I said, you lose yourself. You lose sight of the person that you are, you know. So I think one thing to do is just stay true to yourself. Always do something that's going to make you happy. I had a conversation with a coworker just a few days ago. You know, he gets to work sometimes and he gets overwhelmed with the work, and which is good. You know, obviously you want to care about the work that you do each and every day, but at the same time, you can't take that home with you. No. Because it's just a fraction of your day. It's a fraction of your life. Yes. You know, the most important thing, like I said before, is you go to bed at night and you deal with the decisions that you've made that day. You know, so I think the biggest thing is just to really focus on your like self-gratitude, you know, being able to give yourself positive reinforcement to keep moving forward every day. And you can choose where that comes from. Obviously, positive feedback from other people is something that springs you forward, but you also can't rely on other people to do that for you. You know, you got to be able to find that within yourself, and it comes with a lot of self-confidence. You know, the self-confidence is something that a lot of people deal with, like issues that they deal with. Personally speaking, like that's one thing for me is finding self-confidence, and it's something that I've been working on for the past few years, is being more confident in myself, because like I said, nobody is going to care about you the way you do. You know, so that's, I mean, bringing back to the point that, you know, teachers make a huge impact on people.
I like I said, it's changing, and it's I guess because maybe life is changing, and teachers I guess, how should I put this? Schools change because, well, you probably remember in your school, you get something, you memorize it, and you get it. Well, now you have the computer and the internet and the cell phone, and why do I have to memorize this? It's right in front of me.
Right.
So there's other ways I think teachers could inspire kids. Mainly, I think like life lessons. I recently, in the last couple of years, because of COVID, I've been looking through YouTube videos of positive, videos. And I've done that this year in class that sometimes I will, like once a week, we'll start with a positive inspirational video.
Right.
And do that. I know Coach Fullerton, a baseball coach who I coach baseball with, he's done like mental breathing in classes.
Yeah.
And that's helped a lot. You just go, all right, we're just gonna, and he shows videos on that. And that's another thing that helps. Teachers, and I think maybe because you don't make a lot of money at it, but you get paid much richer down the line from like seeing like Diggy growing up and seeing how great he's doing things, and the other students you had, seeing what they're doing, that you can't buy. That's just something that you made in life.
Yeah. You touched on just like showing like positive videos and everything in your classes, and I don't think people realize that plays a bigger role than people make it out to be. I think as small as it may seem for somebody, it could be a turning point in somebody's life, because you never know what somebody's going through.
No, you don't.
You don't. There's a story that I like to tell. When I was working at a pizza shop, I was working at Toppers, and this guy used to come in every other day or every single day, and he would get the same thing every day. It was always a large salad, side of pepperoncinis. That was it. I remember it to this day. His name is Andre. He used to work at Albertsons, and I would have a conversation with him every time he came in. He was asking me how football was going at the college. He was, always worried about how it was mentally, because I was dealing with concussions at the time that had happened. And it was always it was a good conversation to have each and every time, and I reached to a point where I was really grateful for just like a small conversation to have with him. Yeah. Right. One day, he had been gone. He hadn't came in about like 2.5 weeks. And it's crazy that I could tell the time that he had been gone. And I see him walking in for wave, like he's down the parking lot, and I spotted him, and I told the kid that was working on the register, I said, hey, when he walks up, he's gonna order this, take my card, pay for his meal, and just leave it at that. Don't tell him who it was. I don't need him to know who it was. I just want him to know that somebody's looking out for him. The guy comes up, he orders his food, and the kid, he's like, oh, don't worry about it. It's been paid for. And the kid panics, and he's like, dude, it was him. He paid for it. And I was like, geez, okay. And then so Andre goes, David, you did this? And I said, yeah. He's like, I really appreciate that. He was like stunned. He was at a loss for words. I mean, it was $7, and just that alone left him speechless. And he asked me to come around the counter because he wanted to have a conversation with me. I go around, and he says there's God's real. There's angels above, because I lost my dad 2 weeks ago. And this is the first time that I've stepped out of my house since then. I haven't seen anybody. I haven't talked to anyone. This is the first interaction that I've had with a human being since my father passed away. And for this to be the first encounter, it just speaks volumes to me. He was so grateful for it. I mean, $7 is like, what is that? What I mean? But he was like so grateful. He broke down crying. He gave me a hug, and it was, again, like I said, you never know what anybody's going through. No. So just a small act of kindness, or just you showing these videos and for your class, I think, again, people don't give it enough credit. A smile to somebody, a hello, how are you doing? All these things could be reasons why somebody thinks, I can do it. There are good people out there. Yeah. I can keep fighting.
It's the world's full of relationships.
Absolutely.
And a lot of, especially in today's society, since we do have all this, the internet, and people can stay in their homes and we miss that. We as human beings got to have relationships. Absolutely. You see that story too, and I said this in the book. I had a student, and I knew him, and he did all right, and he had a C in the class and went on. So it was
like me.
Like 5 years later, he read a story in the Acorn about me doing my walks. Yeah. And I come home, and here's this envelope on my fence, and it's from him. and it's for $2,000 to put in for the Joel Fund. And I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah.
So he writes me this letter saying, hey, I'm now married. I have a successful business. I'm doing really well. He goes, I read the story. I have 2 sons, and it just hit me. And you inspired me every day. And I'm sitting there, I talked. He never really said that,
right.
Especially in high school too. You don't really come to the teacher. Oh, you really mean a lot to me. Sometimes you do,
Yeah,
right?
But
you don't hear
the
that
kids in the back.
Yeah, and you don't hear about this till later. But
right.
I was
stunned.
I put a tear in my eye because he just talked about it, and he just said, "Yeah, I want to give this to you."
Wow, that's incredible.
I think the reason is because your classroom always felt so welcoming.
Yeah.
Like anyone
Absolutely.
can walk in, and you weren't scared to sit down, or like you weren't worried. It seemed like all the other problems just kind of went away, and you knew that it was going to be a great class. And like just because like some days you'd walk in costume to teach a lesson, and like everybody was looking forward to it, or like if you're showing a movie or a video or even your PowerPoints, everyone loved your PowerPoints. Like, and like you always said it throughout the year, like, don't take my PowerPoints for granted because you're gonna miss them one day.
Yeah.
And like everyone always did. So like it's just every time you walked into your classroom, like you knew that everything was gonna be okay, and it was just gonna be a fun lesson.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, that's. I keep saying those same things too. I go because they're like, oh, notes. We have to take notes. I say, hey, you're gonna be walking past that door next year. You go, oh man, I miss Birch.
Yeah, for sure. So we talked about any advice that you would give anybody with like dealing with pain. Any like last thoughts regarding that? Based off everything that we've said so far.
It's so individual. I mean, it's hard to say. Like I said, dealing with pain. I would. It's hard to say this because to kind of open up to people because a lot of people can't do that. But I was kind of more of an open person, and that helped me a lot. And just like talking to people, or if you don't want to be by yourself, kind of like get yourself. Don't just close up in your house. Go up and walk around. Because especially around this area, there's a lot of places you can just like be by yourself and hike. Area and I think that kind of opens you up that way too.
Yeah.
Reading, like I said, I read success stories, guys overcoming adversity, and that really helped me.
Right.
With certain books and here and there. I guess that would be the only thing I could. And like I said, open up relationships with people, and don't be afraid to say, I lost my son, but and if you lost somebody, and talking to somebody about it, and something will click. You never know. Sometimes you know, well, yeah, I don't want to do that. But then again, some things will happen to help you.
Yeah.
And I think the more and more you talk to people, you'll find that out.
Right. I think one thing that you just touched on was closing yourself off. And like, I think about this in the sense of like, if you close yourself off physically, it takes a toll on you. You know what I'm saying? So like, if you enclose yourself in your room, it's a dark room, and like, you just consume yourself in your thoughts, because at that point, not only are you trapping yourself into your room physically, I feel like mentally that just puts, chains on you, and it just like really just makes you sit there and consume your thought. Like I lay in bed at night sometimes and I'm just consumed by my thoughts because I just sit there and all I do is overthink. And there's times where my friends try to get me to go out and I'm dealing with, certain mental health issues and I just don't have the motivation to go out. And they're, come on, dude, let's go. Like, this, you shouldn't be doing this. And it's hard for me to step out of that comfort zone. And I mean, it's something that I still work on to this day. But like I said, we like to sit there and like sulk in it. I mean, obviously it's not easy to not do that. It's like definitely difficult to get yourself going and keep pushing forward. It's difficult,
Yeah.
But like I said, there's times where I lay in bed at night and I just try to cope with whatever I'm dealing with, but you just at times you just don't know how.
Yeah, it's safe to kind of do that, and
Right.
sometimes you just got to push yourself. Okay, I got to do something new.
Right.
And that's another thing I always done. I want to do something new. I mean, I remember when I turned 50, and it kind of like you look back and you say, okay, I lost my son. I want to do some things in my life. So I wrote a list of what I wanted to do. I wanted to write a book. I wanted to jump out of an airplane. I wanted to do river rafting.
Did you jump out of an airplane?
Yeah, I jumped out of an airplane. I went skydiving.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then, I wanted to climb a mountain, so I climbed Mount Whitney. So all these things,
awesome.
and just doing that is kind of like brought me out. So I think, but it's easy for me to say, okay, don't close yourself out. And some people, it's hard for them to, get out and do that.
Right.
But maybe just kind of like just a small step each day, just getting out of the house, just doing something for somebody.
Right.
And then maybe that'll make baby steps to get you
Yeah,
going.
it'll spark an interest somewhere for sure.
I mean, like what I think some people sometimes need is just a friend that gets them out of their comfort zone.
Yes, yeah.
Like, for example, as you guys both know, I like making videos. It's something I've always done. And I kind of took a break for a little bit. I just wasn't having fun with it anymore until early February. I made another video, and he had a great time filming it with me and editing it with me. And he was like, hey, let's start a podcast. It's something I've wanted to do. We'll talk about mental health. But I've never gotten down because I just didn't know where to start. And I was like, all right, let's do it. I can help you out. I got all the equipment that we need. Like, we could do it. And I think what everyone just needs is at least one friend that is going to be there for them and just help them, I guess, with their goals or what they want to do.
Absolutely.
Someone that has their back, I think that's what's important.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, is just having that one person that's always there to, not even push you forward, it's just having knowing that you have somebody to be around. Like, the presence of somebody being there is always going to help you, because it just prevents you from sitting there and just consuming yourself in your own thoughts.
Yes.
There's times where I feel like a lot of people think that you can't just go and hang out with a friend just to sit there and do nothing. They think, I can do this at home. But realistically, if it's somebody that's going through issues mentally, I feel like just being around somebody, it's like subconsciously helping you. You're not entirely aware of the fact that it's helping you open up and stuff. Because here's the thing is that there's been nights where I'm hanging out with Diggy. Diggy, you know this. Yeah. There's been nights where we just sit there and just open up. We talk about literally everything under the sun, and you start opening up. All these things come from somewhere. Like, your issues just come out without you even expecting that it's going to happen that night. So I feel like the more willing you are to put yourself in a position to open up, it's bound to happen at some point. Yeah. So I think that's something that people should definitely try to do. I mean, again, it's difficult and it's not something that is super easy, especially if you're going through these mental health issues. But I think just taking that tiny step forward, because I think just hanging out with one singular person when you're dealing with a lot of issues isn't as difficult as opposed to let's go hang out with a big group of people. Because for me specifically, going out and hanging out in a big group of people that's not my crowd. I can't do it. I get a lot of social anxiety, and just being around too many people just makes me uncomfortable. But it also just has to do with who's around me, So I feel like you got to pick the right people, and it's hard to find those people because you may not click with somebody, and you click with different people in different ways. The same conversations, the same things that I do with Diggy aren't the same things that I do with other friends, So like Diggy said, you got to find somebody that has the same interests in you. Obviously, you can't just solely rely on that person to be your source of happiness because, at the end of the day, you got to find it within yourself.
And also, like you touched on, say, okay, I want to take a break from it. And you could say, okay, something's open up. And most people, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. But just once in a while, just go, you know what? I'm just going to break out of my comfort zone and do something else.
Yeah.
And then that opens up to this, and then opens up to the podcast, and then opens up to other things.
Yeah.
Just saying that one thing, all right, I want to take that one step. Maybe I'll just try something new. Maybe I'll just try this. And sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it's going to open up the doors to a lot of different things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just this alone already, we haven't dropped one episode yet, but just newer people have reached out to him and to me just saying, oh, I never knew you guys were into this type of thing. If you guys need anything, let me know. People are willing to help us out, which I think is so cool to see personally. But I've always done something like creating videos and stuff. So I've always been I guess I'm used to the negative feedback and the positive. But for him, watching him go through it for the first time has been really cool for me because he gets so excited about, oh, we're going to do it today. We're going to do this. People are going to love it. And
you feed off his energy too.
So because it's so brand new to him, it feels new to me too.
Right.
So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I initially dropped a video announcing that I was going to do these podcasts, and it was like a small clip. It was like a minute 30, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Uploaded it, and I had anxiety before I even posted it. I was like, dude, what's going to come from this? I don't know what kind of feedback I'm going to get. Are people going to judge me for it? But then, it's it's something that makes me happy, so I'm going to do it regardless. And right now it's starting off as a hobby. If it becomes something more than that, great. However, that's not my focal point. I'm not so worried about, monetizing it, and stuff like that, because a lot of people think like, oh, you're just trying to get into like the social media and make money that way. You don't want to get a real job. Cool, whatever. If that's what you want to think, no, this is my hobby and I'm going to do it because I want to. But I dealt with that anxiety leading up to posting the video. We finished the video and I was going to upload it, and again, I had butterflies. I was freaking out, and I mean, I don't think a lot of people know this. I don't know if Diggy knows this, but I posted the video and the positive feedback that came from it was unreal. I got emotional. I was like sitting there crying like a baby. I was like, dude, it's so refreshing knowing that there are good people out there that are going to support you in what you'd like to do. So that being said, I just kind of want to bridge that to do something that you love to do, and there's going to be, like I said, positives and negatives to it, but as long as you're doing something that makes you happy and something that you're passionate about, good things will follow. Always.
Always. And that's it. When you said this is my issue, I want mental part of life. We have like a mental or a wellness center now here. Because a lot of kids are going through that. And I think you touched a nerve which is going to help people, and that is definitely going to help you. Because I'm telling you, this is a subject matter that we don't discuss a lot, and we should. And I think you're on the right track doing that.
More specifically, I would say even like just men in general talking about mental health. I feel like that's so constantly overlooked in society. Is like a man showing emotions is like I guess in a sense frowned upon. Like you're supposed to be the man, you're supposed to be hard and all this stuff. So I think it's definitely something I want to touch on that I'll talk about in future episodes. But in terms of mental health, now that we're on that subject, how have you progressed in terms of your mental health from the passing of your son to this point?
It's by leaps and bounds. But I think it's getting older in life too. Kind of helps you too.
Right.
It's been, like I said, this is 26 years since my son passed away, and I've been a teacher now for 20 years, and just going the way I think it's the way that I look at life.
Right.
We talked about being a teacher at the start when I was younger to now. I mean, it's the way I handle situations, mainly because I've been around in life longer, and I've seen it, and I've seen the good and the bad of life. But I think the older I get, I accept more things, and some things as far as like the mental part of it of life. I don't shy away from the bad.
Right.
Recently, I had two of my students. It was I think it was 2 years ago, passed away in a car crash.
Right.
And they couldn't even do the funeral. They did it on the computer.
Yeah.
And so Robert Perez, who did reached out to me. These guys were your students. I said, we say some words. I jumped at it.
Right.
And I talked about them, in the class, and talked to the parents. And it was tough, believe me, because I could see what they're going through. And I told them, and I just said, if you want to talk, come just talk to me. So I've gone from closing up to like helping people to almost trying to help people who've lost lives. I think that's how much it's come. And it helps me to help them.
Right.
Like you said, giving out to people. And I've learned that through that, and trying to turn that negative into a positive. And just kind of looking back at it, I remember I got a phone call, said, Birch, these two young men passed away, and they were in my same class.
Yeah, I actually coached those kids.
Oh, did you really? Yeah. And it was like I had to get out. I just walked. I walked around about 10 miles, came back. I was crying.
Right.
Came back. And but it was that I had to talk about them. So I did that, and it helped a lot. And that, I guess that's the more you progress and the more you can do, you're more helping people. That's kind of like the way I think that is I've advanced, I guess, or just moved on in life.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, with that, closing question. I know I brought this up to you, and you thought it would be a little more difficult.
Yeah.
Who's your biggest inspiration?
I thought about it. I guess I'm going to take a different angle from it. I think there's a lot of people who inspired me.
Right.
And it's not just one. My parents, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
When they pushed me into do whatever I wanted to do in life. And then my father-in-law, he pushed me into doing anything. And then my wife, inspired me in things. And then as I went on in life, certain people that you meet, I think believe it or not, my students have inspired me. They've gone on. The Little League team inspired me. There's not just one person. There's just all these different people that have inspired me to do things in life. Books that I've read. I've John Wooden's a basketball coach, and I always, we recently watched 42 in my history class. Jackie Robinson, what he's going through,
right?
And he's another big inspiration for me. So there's this. I wish I could give you one person, but just a lot of people in my life that have inspired me to do what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I can honestly say the same. I feel like there's no one specific person to pinpoint. It's been teachers, it's been coaches, it's been just friends in general. I feel like experiences that other people go through and they teach you different things, right? Like I've had friends who have dealt with, really bad mental health issues, and it's a shock that, and I hate to say this, it's a shock that they're here today, But that being said, I see it as a sort of like, I look up to them, and I'm proud of them because at that point, I don't think there's anybody stronger than this specific friend, because there's been so many things that this person has been through. And the fact that they're still today, it's inspiring, is you deal with so many mental health issues and you're still here today. And that could be said about a lot of people, is they go through these issues and they continue to fight each and every day. As long as they've been going through everything, they're still here. And that to me is an inspiration. It's motivation to keep moving forward, because, obviously people are going to go through hardships. People are going to go through things, and it's about the experiences that you learn after that. It's how you bounce back from it. It's not about how hard you get hit. It's about how hard you get hit and keep moving forward.
It's tough putting yourself out there.
Yeah,
because you don't know, like you said, they're going to like you or not like you, but just little better, putting yourself out there. Okay, put yourself a little bit more. Put yourself a little bit more, and gradually you're going to find your purpose, like what you talked about.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing I've noticed is that from this whole time that we were talking is that you have one thing in common in most of your stories, and it's just having that fight and that will to get what you want done. Like just from the bridge to inspire kids, and how just like see how you fight for what you want to do, and then seeing how, I guess, like the world or like the community thanks you back for everything that you've done. I think it's amazing, and like I think that's kind of like what we want to do too, is like kind of just give whatever we can, and then not even to gain anything, just because it's something that we both enjoy doing, is helping others. And I don't know, it's just something kind of weird. I love seeing how, I guess, the universe or karma or everything, how it just all works out.
Yeah.
When you're giving to people, I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
No, I agree. What the community did for my family, and it kind of like, I was just thrown into this, fire, I guess, because of what happened. But seeing the flowers and and the meals people gave, to my family, and I remember people coming up to me and say, "Oh, you're going to move because you couldn't handle the." The event. And I said, well, no, I thought about all the people who were like surrounding me and propping me up.
Yeah. Why leave that?
Why? Where I'm going to go somewhere that don't even know me. So that kind of like, they kind of fueled me. And then the Little League team, and then, the friendships through that. And then the teaching is just kind of like all, come together. And you talk about, you do one thing, this is going to happen, and this is going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think the Little League story is my favorite story about it. It's just, it's so cool to me.
Yeah. I agree. I had no idea about that, and that's like, it's inspirational. Again, like we go back to the whole inspiration thing.
I truly believe it was God got them going, because it was kind of like growing, and I was kind of like a spectator through the whole thing, and I coached most of these kids,
right?
Yeah.
And I was just on the sidelines, but it was almost, I was meant to see this, and they would go out there and before the game, well, like midway through it, say a prayer for Joel at second base, go out there, and then some miraculous things were happening. And this kept going on and on and on.
Yeah.
And then just talking to them 25 years later.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's
Is that something you talk about in your book?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
We actually didn't really get into the book. Is like, what is the story behind the book? How did you find the motive, or where did you come up with the idea to do the book?
Well, we talk about, wellness, right? And when I would do my walks, something inside me said, you got to write down this experience, especially how miraculous the Little League World Series went.
Yeah.
So it was something inside me that I got to do this. So I wrote things down. This is like a 10-year process. And so then I just didn't know. I mean, I could write, but I wasn't a writer.
Right.
And then so I talked to one of my theater friends, and she edits books. So she said, I'll help you. So Taylor Bradley was her name, and she helped me on this. So I put it all down. So then I also journaled my walks and to put that in there. So that's another thing. I mean, we talk about, if you want to go, writing things down and writing thoughts down is another avenue that a lot of people, it helps. That helped me. And then I put it all together because something inside me said, hey, there's some miraculous things in this. You got to tell people about it. And it's Joel's story. So then I pushed it. There was one story in the book, and maybe I'll add this too, is, Joel passed away, and I had a younger son, Ryan, who was 8 at the time. And so we had 2 bedrooms, in Ryan's and Joel's. And so Joel passed away. Ryan wanted to sleep in Joel's room. So he did, and it was like a couple nights after Joel passed away, and he said, Joel's coming in my dreams to my wife. Wow. And he goes, but we need to build an angel window. So we said, okay. Yeah. So we brought in a stained glass company from Simi Valley, and we talked to this gal, could you come out and, she measured the window, and she knew the story because it was in the papers. Joel passed away. And so anyway, we made, she goes, do you mind if my daughter designs it because she wants to do it? And she said, no, we want your daughter to do it. So it's an angel with a Moorpark hat on and a reds on there. So that thing still hangs in my window today. Yeah. And so throughout the years, my son, Ryan, who is now 30, he's going to be 33, and he still, when I wrote the book, I said, could you just give me what you know about it? Just give me your feelings on it. Right. It's almost like identical to what my wife said. But he said throughout the years, Joel's come through the angel window and talked to him. Not so much now when he's older, but it's like that thing's still there. Yeah. So I think, chronicling the book, and that's how it came about. And then so I self-published the book. And I'm still trying to figure out things. And then you saw how I talked about how the walks have progressed. We've got a website now it's the journey, www.myjourneywithjoel.org is the website where they can buy books. Yeah. I also did an audio version of the book. Okay. We did that. One of my former kids I coach in Little League is into audio, and he said, I'll do it for you. So we did it, and so now I got that too. I haven't put that on. It's on Amazon, so the book on there too. But I just sell the audiobook from the website. Yeah. So you can see how these things are just growing. But that's how how the book came about. Yeah. And so I got it in stored, and like I said, it's at Amazon and some of the stores around town.
Yeah, we'll leave a link down below in the video, and we'll have the website, the Amazon link, and everything for the book. So the book is just stories about.
It's called My Journey with Joel, and it's just there's an old picture of me with brown hair. Now I have white.
Try to show it to that camera.
So it's just show it to the camera. Yeah. So then it's Joel when he was like young. He was like 7 or 8 years old. Yeah. Yeah. And
sweet. Awesome. So I think we could wrap this up. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Pleasure's mine, man. You guys are. I feel honored to be the first person on the podcast.
Number one.
It's gonna keep going.
Yeah. 100%. We're gonna try to get this out as soon as possible, and then go into like a more structured schedule. I'll let you know when the video comes out and everything. We'll do that. But again, I appreciate the conversation. I promise you that the people behind the computer screens or wherever they decide to listen to, they're going to be more than grateful that this conversation was had, because again, people go through these issues all the time. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot to take away from this. I know I learned a lot moving forward for sure. So again, I appreciate everything that you were willing to talk about on here. I know it's not easy, but I do appreciate it, seriously.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm really excited that we finally got to do this, because it's been a while since we first thought of this. So just thanks again for everything.
All right.
Truly.
Thank you.
Awesome. So this was episode 1 of the Purpose Podcast. I'm David Yerzar.
And I'm Diggy.
And the very first guest, Dan Burchfield.
We love it. Yeah. All right. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much.